Well, I'm now here sometime before 8, and when the information on their site on the internet said it was open at 8, and I'm told it doesn't open until 9. So we'll go wander around what seems to be a very pretty park. This is an interesting map of tiles showing basically this area of Ecuador, the volcanic Ecuador. Quito is right up there. Cotopaxi, which I may or may not visit, right there. And then we'll go right straight through this area down to Baños. We are here. I believe I came in here on a street. And I think right now I'll just go for a walk through these paths since I've got an hour at least to blow. This area of the park looks very well done, and it may be an expression of the influence of the wealthy people around it. I don't really know that that's true. I like this building, the angles that they've created, and then that arc there. That's an interesting approach. This is the road I walked up. Probably will leave on the other side, just for the variety. It's interesting, similar to what we have in indicating fire potential. This beautifully laid out walkway leads, I believe, to area pre-urbana, in other words, before the city was here. And the area of first occupation, and these would be, I think, the excavations. So hopefully this blue barricade comes down today. A place like this, you just can't help looking at a pile of rock and wondering who put it here. Is it modern, or did the ancients put it there for some purpose? You don't have anything to do for an hour, you think of all kinds of ideas. First path, so we'll take it. At least this is a lovely spot for the folks that live around here to relax outside their units. And from what I gather looking at the map, this is a city that's packed with park, an exciting little loop. The road I came in on from the north. And here's a larger trail we'll walk. Throughout the world are kind of interesting in cities because their lineage oftentimes, certainly in Europe, is the refuge or reserve of the wealthy, like the king or prince or some other wealthy person who had it all to themselves. And then when such power was torn away, oftentimes these parks were dedicated to the public, who by then had probably expanded the residential area of the city to such a degree that parks were really a useful addition to the stability and tranquility of the resident minds. What would be the potential to put something like this on top of my house if I built it? Make it a little bit lower, but with that interesting curve or something to it. The cement pathway probably used to be the road up to the main buildings, which we'll return to. There's Mariana de Jesus Boulevard. So we'll walk down here and hopefully we can encounter another pathway. I think that's the parking area. And down here is the traditional park amenities, playground for kids and adults who aspire. And here we get just a hint of the elevations of this long, narrow, and declivity city, if you will, of Quito. There's a man who's got his plastic bag to pick up after his dog. That's what I'll say about Ecuadorians. Their intent is to keep their place clean. They throw trash away. They have trash barrels around. Above me is an oak tree of some sort, but notice there's no acorns. I would only assume there must be a horde of squirrels around here, and that doesn't look like an oak, does it? Looks more like some kind of larch with that bark peeling off. This may be the nut type thing that fits in that little conical head down there. As I stroll through the park, recovering from the loss of breath just walking up the hill to get here, that there are some who are jogging up these hills in the park. But recently I read that, at least for people in some mountainous areas, I forget which, they have a special gene that allows their body to retain more oxygen than ours does. There's some athletic center that's a part of this complex. Very useful for the neighborhood it's in. Little bits of park art that are added to some of the little toys, if you will, or equipment for kids to play on, including this, a young boy on roller skates, presumably getting ready to push whoever was once on this wheelchair up that little incline. Down below us, looks like a line dancing exercise group. Chuckle a little bit at this, although there's nothing to chuckle at, except for the fact that I'm not likely to be able to do what they're doing. So my chuckle would be even more hypocritical. It's very oriental to me because it looks very much like the statues that you occasionally see in Asia. Kind of a curious sculpture, as many are. There appears to be a person breaking out of an egg before the sun. I wonder what the intent of the perfectly carved hole in that lower rock is. This appears to be a young Oriental person. They have a brush in their right hand, and they're sitting on this, what looks more like a Dutch shoe, with a little seating area inside, and that may be the tongue of the shoe hanging out. Maybe just a place for kids to sit, play around inside. It's a structure of wood as a slide. The metal part's smooth enough, but then you have this part. They tried to fix it with some putty, but it's a little bit dangerous for kids. Taught her that it would require, I think, some rather heavy people to make it work, unless it's really nicely balanced. Nicely balanced. Practicing for their military experience. There's two very pretty dogs, not on leashes. One looks like an Alaskan Husky. I'm not sure what the other one is. It's just interesting how walking up these relatively modest hills is really demanding on the lungs. For me, it's not their steepness. It has to be the high elevation, lack of oxygen. Here's a pretty little bower, or that could be if these plants get growing enough. Maybe the Ecuador pigeon, well, it seems a little bit large, but it is endemic to Ecuador and doesn't hang out in flocks. Adult exercise toys. Of course, some are broken, that's no surprise. Build and forget it. An area just for dogs, apparently, to play in, although they do quite well in the whole park, apparently. So dogs get to meet other dogs and have some interesting things to play on. Looking more closely at this tile work, there you see Quito, and there's Ibarra, where I went to Inca-Cara after being at Otavalo, which is probably right about in there somewhere, but not noted. I think the huge volcano that I saw when we were landing at Quito the other day was Cotopaxi right here. It looked like the top of that mountain was probably higher than we were when we were landing. And there was another one we passed on somewhere on this route here that looked like it was probably about 500 to 1,000 feet below us, far closer than I thought aircraft were supposed to be, and it wasn't that far away. There's a lot of Kunga where I'll spend a couple of days, and Quitu over there. Quitu, another place where I'll go look at, I think, some lakes and a volcano. Rumipampa, I'll go right past that and route down to Banos in that area.